association, right? And getting the parent volunteers on board. Like I say, it's just hard to convince them that they need to convince the association that they need a budget. So that was kind of my question is how much do you budget? What do you budget for volunteers? And again, just the suggestion that definitely like a volunteer coordinator to help out with all of these things.
I think that's an interesting point. I have never thought of like the role of volunteer coordinator being a part of the whole like volunteer budget. I just think of it as another staff role. Uh,
And we
Kathy, I
have
saw you come off mute.
3 staff members and 21 councils and committees and boards. And those 3 staff people are responsible for doing that. It's not a separate paid role, and there is 0 budget for all of those boards and committees. That's how we do it, at least with the American Institute of Architects. But I'm trying a new idea right now to talk about Rick's first question of recruitment, and that is to run social media spotlights. I don't know if I'm allowed to share screen or not. I think I am.
Love it.
So I ask all of the current serving people to submit a headshot and the answer to a question. This is the council or advisory council or committee they're serving on. And, why are you passionate about? And it has to do with this council. So we run this 2-panel social media, and then it's always got if you're interested in serving, on this or another group, let us know. And we've been running it for a little over a year. And I just get comments from people like, oh yeah, I saw that at least. So awareness is one part, but I'm hoping that seeing the people who are currently volunteering, the different types of people, the diversity, the range in age, will help recruit.
Kathy, could you put that back up? I'd like to grab a screenshot of that. That was pretty good, pretty nice.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Kathy.
There's the one.
It's interesting because
answer the question on
the I got the front one, and let me just grab that one too.
Kathy, I have a quick question. Do you change your questions? Do you ever
yes,
change
based
them?
on the council? Yeah. So if it's the education council, it'd be like, why are you interested in the professional development programming for this association? Or if it's my EDI committee, why are you passionate about equity, diversity, and inclusion? So yes, we changed the question. Thanks for letting me share.
I like it. I like your idea. It works. Looks like it works very well. We've done spotlights for our board members, and that has been great because people get to know who the board members are, but haven't really thought about doing it from the volunteer perspective.
And of course, we put email calls for volunteers in every single newsletter we send out, and get 0. So we're trying something new.
Yeah. One thing I mentioned that I did recently was I looked at, the people that are following our LinkedIn profile and just sent them an email thanking them for following the profile. And then said, hey, if there's anything I can do to help you with professional development, with your career, we're registering for our events, just let me know. And every single person I reached out to responded, and several of them stepped up to volunteer. So it was just a very easy thing to do, didn't cost any money, and people really appreciated that personal outreach.
how many people would you say you reached out to, Rick?
Well, I reached out to 8 because we're a small organization. So,
okay.
And all of them responded, and 6 of them are already on board as volunteers, and the other 2 I have meetings with in the coming week. So, yeah, so we've added people to membership, to communications, to programs, and then for the first time ever with our chapter, we're going to have a student outreach coordinator to reach out to various universities to promote our association and our programs.
Amazing. So it sounds like for recruitment, volunteer recruitment, social media has been a big channel for people because it looked like, Kathy, that was an Instagram post that you had posted. And then Rick, it sounds like you've been reaching out through LinkedIn. Have any others seen success using social? Oh, sorry, Melissa, I missed your hand.
No, sorry, mine is off topic, so go ahead and finish that and then I'll
Oh,
come
okay.
back next.
I was just going to say, is anyone else seeing success using social media as a way to recruit volunteers?
Yes, we usually post I'm from the Health and Fitness Association. Um, we usually post a form to get to recruit volunteers for our annual show. And that's been successful. That usually we give them a free pass to attend, and they do like 4 hours at per day, and then they get to enjoy the rest of the show.
Nice. Anyone else? All right, Melissa, go ahead with your question.
Oh, I was just gonna say again, back to Rick's initial question. When one of the things that worked was after an in-person event, that's a great time either at the event or just following the event. That's a great time to recruit volunteers because there's such a buzz and an energy that comes from in-person events, right? So to kind of capitalize on that as people are still kind of high off of the the weekend and of the networking, then that's a great time to capture people's attention and just keep the motivation going, right? So the timing of these things matters too, right?
Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns around like recruiting volunteers?
I
Has,
can
has
add.
anyone else reached out to, like the actual committees? I did last week, we have a sponsorship committee, which we've never had before either. And they're gung ho, and we brought in some great people who have some experience with generating sponsorships. And I asked the sponsorship chair if I could just sit in on the first like 10 minutes of the meeting just to say hi, just to say thank you, welcome, and what the goal is and how much we measure how much we appreciate their participation. I wonder if anybody else had done anything like that and what the results were.
Anyone? So Rick, you are essentially sitting in on the like the committee calls just to better understand.
Well, this was a first time thing for me. So this is a
Okay.
brand new committee, brand new members, and two of the people who stepped up to volunteer are actually brand new members of the organization. So I
Love it.
wanted to just say, how much I appreciate their participation. And I think it went well because the committee chair talked to me later that week and said, hey, they really appreciated you stopping in and kind of just setting the big picture, because the committee chair is going to work with them on the day-to-day stuff. But I wanted to talk
Right.
about how what they were doing really fit in and contributed to the overarching goals of the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, that's helpful. I think giving people a why behind what they're doing can be helpful. And just having them see like leadership throughout the organization come in and dedicate some time to the hellos, the introductions, the why.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, it looked like you were gonna ask a question or share an idea as well.
Yeah, I was just going to share. We've got, close to 50 chapters and councils. Thankfully, we do have liaisons within our staff who are accountable for the success of those. Success, I say lightly, really just to be sure that they're running and they have the, resources that they need. Um, I will say for a council that I was put on day one, that they didn't really understand what their mission was as a council, as a group of volunteer leaders. And I didn't either. So it was one of those things where it seemed really clear to the staff of my group, and the members had an idea of what their council did, but I had to dust off the roles and responsibilities of my council, and it seemed like something that hadn't been done in a minute. So that was one thing. Really pushing out to like my staff and just reminding everyone what the roles and responsibilities were listed as and asking if they needed to be updated, and really like pinpointing like the top three, like what, to our CEO, what is the point of this council? To the members, what is the point of this council? And making sure that those aligned and were clear. So that was step one. And then step two, in a similar fashion, I asked if we were all really clear on what the expectations were for the council, for the volunteers, what time was expected for them to give to back to, the member base through this volunteer role. And that too, I got mixed answers. And so that was a really neat opportunity to say, everybody pause, like, what is the expected engagement? Because I'm a pretty like straightforward person. If I had a good conversation with a solid person within our membership, I would say, you're great. You'd be perfect for a volunteer role. And they'd immediately be like, not a chance, and kind of run away. And then I'd say, well, pause. Like, why are you even saying no? They're like, I've got enough on my plate. And I'm like, but I think I'll email you 4 times a year. I might reach out, 2 to 4 times for like a potential email you can send a prospect within your product range, right? Like really low commitment. And so I'm like, what are you worried about? And they were like, oh, I thought it was so much more. And so I think that, yeah, just clarifying for everybody the roles, the responsibilities, and then like what the level of engagement is expected. That helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Do you guys feel like you can, and this isn't just to you, Elizabeth, this is to the group as a whole. Do you feel like you have an understanding of how much time is required for your volunteers? How much time your volunteers need to dedicate to their role to help be successful? Or is that an exercise that might be helpful to be able to spell out what the time commitment looks like for people?
It probably would be very helpful. I know I
Yeah.
remember hearing somebody talk about this at an event a couple of years ago, where he said if you wanted to attract volunteers and you run up against that issue of, well, it's going to be overwhelming. I've got a job and I got a family and kids and everything else, is to break down the volunteer responsibilities into components and say, well,
Hmm.
I'm not asking you to be the volunteer or to be the committee chair, but could you do X, which is just a piece of that role. And maybe you've got 20 different things that could be done in that committee, and maybe they just take on one responsibility. Maybe they create one social media post a month for you or something, or maybe they are the greeter at your events or something. So it doesn't become as onerous. We haven't gotten to
Yeah.
that point yet because we're just now getting all these volunteers on board. So apart from our board, now we're trying to fill all these committees. So, but I know that is a good way, because if you say to somebody, hey, it's only going to take you, 3 hours a month, they might bite on that as opposed to saying, I need you to take on something that's going to take 20 hours a month or something.
Yeah, and some of that comes down to probably like setting expectations with your chair and incoming chair too. If you have an idea of how much time they're looking for the volunteers to commit and what projects they're looking for people to work on, that's going to help break down the time too. All right. Kathy, you want to throw out your question to the group? I feel like this fits in with the timing piece.
Uh, the term micro for everything, people have been talking about micro learning or micro volunteering, excuse me, opportunities. And I feel like we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but I know our position descriptions for each committee or council kind of, here's what to expect. But sometimes there's a task force, or like you said, a role to just welcome for an event or something like that. There seems to be more of a desire for those smaller opportunities, which inevitably mean more work for staff. But I just was looking for anybody's guidance or information on that.
We do micro volunteering at the American College of Rheumatology in sort of a bunch of different ways. We do some micro volunteering efforts that are as simple as like a couple of hours to read a paper and to do a review of a paper. And then we do kind of all the way up to subcommittees and work groups for micro volunteers. So it's sort of like micro, and then there's short term, and then there's like the standing, committee stuff that we've been talking about today. And for us, we find micro volunteering is especially appealing for people who are starting out in their careers, because they want those seats that are actual seats on the committees, and then committee chair positions, and then board positions. So having an opportunity for just, to do something in just a couple hours that you can throw on your CV and say, yes, I've done volunteering, I've started working with the college, is really helpful.
I'm with the International Association for the Study of Lung Cancer, and our primary volunteer opportunities are our committees, but they don't rotate it's every 2 years. And so and to your point, Kathy, of wanting to offer more, volunteer opportunities, but it takes so much staff time and there's just too many dependencies. So my membership committee just rotated over in September, finally. Not that they weren't great, but it takes 2 years is a long time to put some of these systems into place. And so I am working with my membership committee as we assign our work for our upcoming plan. I'm asking them, hey, one of our projects needs to be finding ways to offer other members micro volunteer opportunities. So can we work with our other committees to say, where could you use help? How can you plug in, if it's a 10-minute, 15-minute, 1 hour, couple hours, whatever, however you define it. So we're just trying to build a little bit more of a system that's dependent on the existing opportunities that we have in a way that hopefully expands, because the staff dependencies, that's been the holdup for us too. And so I appreciate the review of a paper is a good idea. It always helps to know, what are the things, right, that we could kind of get a little bit of a groove going. So we're having similar conversations. I appreciate you bringing that one up.
What just came to mind, and this is, sorry to just jump in, but I don't know if this would be worthwhile. I'm going to write it down for our lead and our chapter space. When you mention the reading of papers, that's such a offline, like there's no real human interaction, social interaction. I don't think I've thought about this before when setting up like levels of engagement, right? Like the micro, macro, however you would break it out for a volunteer role. Have we really paused and said, like, maybe they just don't want to be that handshaker, like that greeter? Maybe it's like, instead of breaking it out like time wise, maybe it should be broken out personality wise, right? So it's like, it'd take me 2 hours to review a paper, but with little to no effort, I could introduce myself and connect them with 10 people under, 15 minutes, like, because it comes naturally to me. So maybe that's a creative way that we can be tackling this, instead of just looking at it like metric wise, time based. Instead, we could be looking at it personality wise.
It could be a combination of both because you can, have your communications with your prospective volunteers. Say these are the kind of volunteer opportunities that we have. Where would you like to plug in? And then there could be, individual assignments within a committee and say, well, would you take this piece or would you take that piece as opposed to taking over the whole committee role or something?
As you were all talking about like the micro volunteering, one of the ways that I want to explore this year is kind of using our members to, in addition to the personality, but the skills, right? What are they really good at? And finding those content writers, and those so that we could do more video and we can do write-ups of our sessions if since we're not recording them. I think that would be really helpful, and our members have said it would be really helpful to get like those take backs, to take back to their staff on what the learning was. And I think that's one way that we can use, and I'd like to explore that this year, but that's one micro volunteer position I think we can use and it would be helpful for both. So using their skills in addition to their personality.
I come at this at a very different perspective from most of the folks in the call because I'm a local chapter president of a trade association. I was president of another trade association, which I've been on the board of for 20 years or more. So I look at it as how can we locally do this, but what can the National Association do to help us? And we don't really get a lot of assistance in either of those associations directing chapter leaders at, effective volunteer recruitment, recognition, all of that kind of stuff. So it kind of falls on the chapter leaders. And if you're a good leader, great, you're getting those volunteers. If you're not, you're struggling. So what could the national associations do to provide best practices, to coach chapter leaders to be more effective in recruiting? I think that's something that would be very, very helpful to me personally if our national association did that. And I'm just throwing it out there to each of you because a lot of you are at that national level.
That's a big reason of why I got on the call today. And hopefully Shinya is going to tell me if I say anything wrong. I work for AETCC, the American Association for Textiles, Chemists, and Colorists. Sorry, I'm still brand new to this association, so I'm still getting used to the acronym. Um, a lot of our struggle we've seen has been with getting section leaders who one want to give up their set seat and then find new people to take it. So we were talking about it today, and we were talking about one sheets that we could easily make available to them. I'm really interested to kind of hear what you guys are doing for your sections. I know that section participation is always a pain point at a lot of associations, or at least associations I've worked for in the past, but I'm just trying to figure out ways that we can get more people, one, interested in the path of the section, because there are always great ways for our members to stay in touch locally and all of that.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback off of what Amanda's comments because we were just meeting about this earlier today. Kind of touching on what Elizabeth was talking about as well about how to get a more streamlined process. In our sections, other groups might call them chapters. It's the same thing where they're kind of regionally run, but we're having challenges, especially some of them that operate so uniquely, and it's not a streamlined process where maybe there's some legacy members that have been staying on a little longer than needed. And then we're just basically trying to figure out how we can bring it back to an easy process to plug people in and also, approach new members who don't have any experience with volunteering. How do we kind of bring them in a way that's really streamlined and easy for them to join in?
Could you have your membership chair reach out to folks who recently joined to talk to them about volunteer opportunities? Or if you had a volunteer coordinator, could they reach out to new members just to welcome them and say, here's the opportunities, and then direct them to a web page or a one-page description of the committee responsibilities?
Yeah, we do some of that, but I think even just hearing from all of everyone's suggestions here today, we need to make our kind of volunteer opportunities more visible and easier to access. But yeah, that's a great suggestion, Rick. Thank you.
And it's surprising to me that, volunteer organizations don't seem to place a high value on recruiting and engaging volunteers. I mean, it's kind of curious.
We're changing that every day, Rick. We're changing it
Yeah.
every day.
Yes.
We list our
Uh,
councils and committees on our website and all the people serving in it. We don't link those to emails or anything for spam reasons, but
mm,
and then the title of the council or committee is linked to a position description that goes over who's eligible, what you're going to work on, how much time it's going to take. So on our website, we list all those. So it's an easy thing to point people to, like if you're ready to serve.
yeah, and web pages are typically a little bit easier to update than like PDFs to then re-upload.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, how many of you on the call are volunteers yourselves, like for other organizations? Okay, so for those of you on camera, it looks like pretty much all of you are. I'm wondering, like, how did you get recruited for the volunteer opportunity? Was that a personal drive? Did you have somebody reach out to you or recommend the role? Like, almost just putting yourself in your member's shoes. That's honestly one of my favorite things to do is, okay, if I were a member, or I think about, okay, so I'm a member of ASAE, like how did I become a volunteer with this group? Like what was my goal? How did I get introduced to this? I'm curious to hear all of your stories because that might spark some ideas too for how you can then recruit
Yeah,
volunteers for your organization.
that's a smart question. I'll say for my experience, it was a little bit of both, right? Like somebody in leadership asked me, um, and then I also was engaged with them and wanted to give back to the group. So, um, that's my side. But I think one thing to point out too is something we've done recently, and I can't even tell you exactly how we've done it. I just know I've read it, and to be fair, we just put somebody in the position to called like chapter ambassador. So it's all being revived like as we speak. But what they did, they acknowledged the growth in an individual, professionally speaking and or personally, however you want to spin it, when you do step into a volunteer role. So they made sure I kept asking, not making the CEO very probably happy. But I kept asking, like, who are we to ask them to give us more of their time? Like, they're members, they pay us for resources and benefits. And then we're telling them that they have to give us more, time equals money. So this is a strange, and we expect them to attend a conference a year. That's money. And so I started to really look at it from like a monetary perspective. But then recently, I think people, similar to being reminded what their roles and responsibilities are and being very clear with those, also remind them that this is a benefit to them. One of our CEOs of our largest members acknowledged publicly, which was very helpful for us, that if you step into a volunteer role, so I'm telling some teenagers this currently who are looking at building out their resumes and college applications, and I'm like, if you have your foot in a space that you can be proud of and put on a resume, that will track for your whole life, right? You'll immediately be making references. You'll immediately be seen as somebody that isn't just a bump on a log, like you're really trying to move the needle, and that's noticed. And so that like and that can affect an individual contributor, a middle manager. It can affect even senior execs who are looking at C-suite because it brings a spotlight to your giving back to society, and super valuable.
Elizabeth, we answer that question in three ways, basically, that, you're volunteering for the association. It enhances your professional development. You're gaining opportunities to experiment in other areas where you may not have had experience, like maybe membership or maybe programs or maybe communications. And of course, the networking opportunities available. We also found that the more the people volunteer, the more engaged they are in the association, the more value they perceive out of their membership. And that is borne out in their length of being involved as a member in the association, as well as their level of satisfaction when we do these surveys. We ask, are you a volunteer, and then how long, and then they'll check off their level of satisfaction, and there's definitely seems to be a correlation between the satisfaction level and their volunteer engagement. To answer Brittany's question, which is how did I get involved? First, I was a student chapter member while I was in graduate school of the Public Relations Student Society of America. And I had to do an internship as part of my graduate studies. So I did an internship with the president of PRSA, the Philadelphia chapter. And then she recruited me while I was doing the internship to get involved in a committee for PRSA. And then as a mentor over the years, she continued to prod me to take on more and more responsibility, become a membership chair, then a program chair, then a vice president, and then eventually president of the organization. And 30 years later, I'm still doing it. And my wife still curses her every day because she was the one that recruited me and got me into this stuff, So, but that's how I got in.
And I'll just tell my story is I'm new to a board for a women's fund here in Massachusetts. And I met the woman at a networking event and we had coffee another day and she kind of answered all these questions you guys were asking, like I'm asking what's the time commitment because I'm really busy and I have a full-time job and I launched a business. But then she was really clear on these are the like we're carving out the roles, but what do you want to do? And really kind of figuring out what my personality was, what my skills are, and how I can contribute to the association. And so we found a good, like I'm a greeter at events. But I'm also my goal is to really go out into the community for those we give grants to and connect with those grantees and get more of those volunteer stories. Well, my story is to get the stories of the grantees and then share that so that we keep the association in front on social media in front of others. So yeah, it was just a conversation, really. And I thought that was best for me because then I was able to think through and get all my questions answered of whether or not I can make, the commitment.
Love it. Anyone else want to share how they've gotten involved?
Yeah, I can share. And the example I gave earlier was my real life example where I attended a conference, right? And then
Yeah,
it was like just such
love
a
it.
good energy. And then they emailed after and they were like, hey, who wants to join? I'm like, yes, sign me up. You guys
Yes.
are fun. So that's one. The other one is like kids sports activities, right? So like when you get your kids involved in sports, they're always looking
Mm,
for volunteers there. That's the one we're struggling with. That's the one I'm not happy with right now. So kind of giving giving some input back to the board of like, hey, you need to recognize your volunteers and do something. And then the other one is professional development. So I'm working towards a designation and was just saw a gap that I didn't have as much experience in, a particular area. So because I couldn't get that at work, right? Work doesn't cover the entire, professional development spectrum. So I went out to seek it in a volunteer role. We have a really good, I'm in Ontario in Toronto, Canada. So we're, our country's population is the size of some of your single states, but so we are at a bit of a smaller scale, but we have a really good organization here called Charity Village, and they specialize in not-for-profits. So it's a job board as well as like resources, but they're really good in that they post paid full-time jobs with not-for-profits as well as volunteers. So you can find everything that we've kind of described here, volunteering, not talking to people, volunteering, talking to people, volunteering, being on a board. So when a person does have a need or a desire to find a volunteer opportunity, there is kind of a single source here to go to. So I don't know if in each of your states or whatever, there's kind of a good reputable single source to find an opportunity, but I also found that was really helpful when I did identify a need. So lots of ways to go about it.
I did
Mhm.
have a quick question, and that is, do you allow non-members to volunteer?
I think it all depends on the
Medicine.
organization, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
we
would be interesting. So what would, oops, sorry. I think that was
Sorry,
go ahead, Kelsey.
yeah, sorry, Brittany. I was just quickly going to say
No,
that
good.
for some of our opportunities, like when it comes to our conferences, because, they're medical, they're sharing research, right? We will have occasions when we need XYZ expertise, or that perspective. And so it's not as strict, but in terms of our committees and things that are a little bit more highly sought after, that's, we frame that as a member benefit and making sure they're members. So it does depend.
Yeah, Nicole, are you thinking volunteers on committees or boards or just in any capacity? Like, I'm assuming Kelsey, for the events, that would be volunteers to support with education or things that you're hosting on site.
Yeah, like moderating or, roles that
Okay.
are strictly in the presenting of the research.
Yes, I think
That's
there's two side, like in our organization, there's two thoughts, and the CEO wants to open it up, our committees up to volunteers, to non-members, as a way to let them get involved, let them make the connections, let them see the work that we're doing, and maybe they'll become members. And then I have friends in other nonprofits, and there's people in our organization who's like, no, it should be a member benefit only. And we are 100% agree with, like, conferences. When we need a special content expert, we will open it up to non-members. But I do have friends in other nonprofit associations who are like, yes, we have non-members on our committees and that are still not members, and they've been there for 10 years and they just haven't joined, but they'll send members and they'll refer members. So we let it slide. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out, where do I sit on this? Like, I haven't made a decision on if I think that's a good or a bad thing. I'm still I guess I'm still in the lane that committee should really be a member benefit, because our members do want to give back and find ways to plug into the association and share their expertise. So,
Nicole, this issues come up for us as well. I've had a couple people step up who are non-members, and I'm just curious what the association's legal counsel would say, because if something were to happen, like you're at a conference, somebody does something through neglect that causes somebody to get injured, or they, print something or say something or do something, is the association going to be, held accountable? Probably. Would their insurance cover it if they're a non-member? I don't know the answer to that question. So that may be something to investigate with your organization's legal counsel before you even proceed to go any further.
thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
My whole position on non-members being on committees is, if you've become a level where you want to serve on a committee, there is no reason for you not to be a member. That is that, like, if we are at a level to where you want to actively give your time, you want to volunteer on our committees, you want to do all this, but you are holding the line at joining, we got to figure out what's going on. Like, what's
yeah.
stopping that join?
Hmm.
Yeah, that opens up a conversation for sure. But yeah, I do think that there's a fine line too. There's probably some like, again, going back to the micro volunteering opportunities, right? There might be some micro volunteering opportunities that could help get potential members in the door if they're interested in writing content or supporting an event, whatever it may be. Maybe that's the way for them to see like the value of membership. So it's kind of defining what would be open to members versus non-members.
That's a good in the middle.
Yeah.
A compromise, that
Yeah.
present, but thank you. All good. All good.
Yeah, or if you are like, again, I'm with College of Family Physicians of Canada, so our members are all physicians and they have to be insane to volunteer. It's because members are making decisions for members, right? But if you're in a broader space, is there potential for, and it's a bit of a ripple effect, but is there a potential for a different class of membership, right? Associate member or somebody who maybe doesn't meet all the criteria of a full member. Let's say you had to be in a specific industry to be a full member. Could you have an associate member category where there's still a bit of a revenue stream for you? They are able to help with certain types of volunteer opportunities, or you have a limit of the number of non-members per committee. So there are other ways that you can structure it too, because some of them are very valuable in terms of um, I mean, we call a spade a spade. Some of them are your sponsors, right? Like your business supporters too. So you kind of want to nurture that relationship and keep them in the fold. So maybe there is a space for another membership type.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I've worked in associations that had the associate member tag on people, but they tended to be vendors, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
it tended to be more towards that vendor side rather than the membership.
Yes.
All right, folks, a couple of things. We've got about 10 minutes left, so just want to be mindful of timing. In these 10 minutes, if you have suggestions for next month's topic, please go ahead and put that in the chat. Just wanted to throw that out there so we have some time. This has been an amazing conversation. I love it. And this stemmed again from last month's group. So again, any ideas that you guys have, things that you want to talk through, especially with the end of the year coming up, thinking about what you're doing for the new year, how you're closing out renewals, whatever it may be. That being said, are there any other hot topics or questions that you guys have that we haven't talked through? I think some of the chats at the beginning of the call talked a little bit more about volunteer recognition, engaging volunteers, keeping them engaged. So if we want to jump onto that topic, or again, if anyone else has a specific question that we haven't addressed yet. All right, Nicole's looking for some recognition awards.
Oh, I'll just explain that a little bit more. We do
Yeah.
awards annually, and I think there's an opportunity to create and engage the membership, engage the award winners, and promote them year long. I just don't know how to do it, and I'm just wondering if anybody else does it. I would love to have that conversation. Like, what are the
So you're
best
looking
practices for year long?
for ways to take those award recipients and essentially like promote them throughout the year
Yes.
and okay. What types of awards are they?
Um, so Associate of the Year award would go to a vendor of ours, Community Service Award, and a women's leadership award. I think there's one more. I can't remember what the fourth one is. Oh, it's like an international because we are an international association, so it goes out to one of our international members.
Anyone have thoughts on that? Does anyone, or should I say, does everybody have an awards program as well? Cool.
Have honors and awards too every year.
Okay.
We
I
spent,
think so.
yeah. I
Sorry,
didn't
go
know if
ahead.
that was a topic for a future discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna
Oh,
say,
you didn't
I've
want
got
to
a
talk
lot
about
to
that
say about
now.
it. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. We'll just save that for next month. Okay, so we've got onboarding new members and then recognizing award recipients. So those are two good topics. Any other thoughts? Add the association. Okay, thanks, Melissa. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts on volunteering? Any question that wasn't addressed or idea? All right. So after this, what we're gonna go ahead and do, we will send out Alejandra go ahead, raise your hand. Wave to the group. Alejandra is also part of the PropFuel team. So what we're gonna do, we are going to clean up the recording of this. We will share that with everybody. We also are going to start adding in like a summary of some of the key points that we talked about and some ideas that were shared. That way we don't lose steam. It sounds like one of the bigger things that at least stood out to me, and feel free at the bottom of the chat if you want to put in like a big takeaway for you or maybe a next step. We can share the chat screen. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. Share the chat transcript as well. And that way we can also kind of hold ourselves accountable to whatever it is that we're going to do. I think one of the big takeaways for me is that it sounds like simply putting a time commitment down for some of these volunteer roles could actually make a big difference for recruiting volunteers, and then putting some expectations down as well. Whatever that looks like for your association is going to look different for everybody. But I think that that was like a big takeaway for me. So again, we're going to compile all of the ideas, the suggestions, and we'll include that in the email as well. So you have something to reference and the ideas aren't lost in the abyss. And you don't have to rewatch the entire recording in order to get the ideas that you're looking for. All right, folks. Unless you have anything else you want to share, we'll go ahead and give you 4 minutes to decompress or take a minute before your next meeting if that's what you're going to. Thank you all. This was a wonderful conversation. So thank you all for participating and thanks for all of the ideas. And I hope we see you next month.
Thank you.